Hi, my name is Leighton Jen. I'm Director of Development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, AmDocs, which is March 27th through 31st. This is our news series where we talk to our sponsors, but they're more than just sponsors or participants. And today we're talking to David Reese, the news director at NBC Palm Springs, and they have three entries into our festival as well as sponsoring us and giving us a little coverage to help spread the word about AmDocs. David, can you talk to me about your participation with AmDocs? And this is your first year. What were your thoughts of last year and what your thoughts about being part
Well,
of the
I
team?
think thank you for having me, by the way. And we're really excited to participate in this. I feel like documentary storytelling is very much in the same wheelhouse and adjacent to news, if you think about it. I mean, it's longer form storytelling, and we just do the short version of that, and we tend to skim the cloud tops, and documentaries go deep on subject matter. And we do a little bit of that.
Hmm.
We're commercial television news, so we don't we specialize in newscasts and like I said, skimming the cloud tops. But I have tremendous respect for documentaries. I love watching documentaries. And we're really excited to be a part of it because, like you, we share that passion for storytelling and informing people. I think at the end of the day, it's really about letting people know as much as you can about a subject that you're passionate about. And I think that a lot of these documentaries that you guys feature are featured in the festival are really passion projects for some people, and that really shows. And when you're passionate about something, there's really no stopping you. And so I think this is really high quality content. We're really excited to be featured. We were excited with the invitation. Our first exposure to you was last year, and we were very impressed. So we were thrilled when you circled back and asked us to participate this year.
Well, we're flattered. Thank you so much, and you guys did such a great job. And the entries you have sent to us is from the Coachella Valley Journalist of the Year, Olivia Sandusky.
Yeah.
Two different projects. One, the Salton Sea. Well, let's start with that one. I mean, obviously, that's a big story for us locally and regionally, but maybe a lot of people around the country, around the world don't know about it. Can you talk about that project and how it came about?
Sure. So the Salton Sea is actually an interesting feature of the Coachella Valley here in Southern California. It is a giant lake that is basically an accident. It was formed when a railroad company cut a dike back at the turn of the century. And for several years, water flowed from the Colorado River into the Coachella Valley and formed this giant lake. It's below sea level. So it's an accident. It's an accidental lake. And what's interesting about it, at least from my perspective, is when I first came here as news director some years ago, there was all this discussion about, what are we going to do about the Salton Sea? Because it is shrinking every year. And every year when it recedes, the silt that is on the bottom of it kicks up in the wind, and it's very windy out here because it's the desert. And it is causing lots of health problems, particularly for children who live in the Salton Sea area. In fact, there's a staggering number, and I don't want to misquote it, but there's something like, I think it's 80% of kids who live around the Salton Sea have asthma. And it's very obvious, the cause and effect of why. And so there has been intermittent talk with leadership in the state of California about ways to actually fix it. The real issue is that the Salton Sea has no inflow. So it gets really hot here, so it evaporates. So every year the shoreline recedes and the lake recedes and creates more shoreline. And so it's a real problem. And I sort of dismissed it when I got here because I'm like, oh, it's way down there. And I'm like, this lake wasn't supposed to be there anyway. It's a mistake. But the truth is, if we don't pay attention to it and we don't care about it, it's already impacting the lives of people who live down there. And to be really honest with you, I think racism plays a part in it as well. I mean,
Oh.
it's those people are predominantly Latino, don't
Hmm.
have a loud voice. They're socioeconomically depressed there. And so these are people who don't have a loud voice in Sacramento. And so that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do this elongated storytelling. And when Olivia came to me to pitch this idea, I was all about it because that's one of the reasons that I got into journalism, was to give a voice to people who don't have a voice, and or maybe to amplify their voice. And so, they've been trying for years to get someone to pay attention to their needs. And I think we may be at a turning point now where there is some attention being paid to it. And I'd like to think that, our attention to that has helped with that, because that's what we wanted to do here. And so Olivia went out and really spent a lot of time with a lot of the different aspects of this story. and the people who live there. And now there's this whole lithium thing, and you know, it's a story that keeps growing and changing. So we're actually working on another documentary, another long form half-hour special. This one's going to be an hour,
Whoa.
about lithium and about how lithium may actually be the saving grace for this area and this project, because they discovered kind of by accident that all of this geothermal activity that's going on out there, when they pull stuff out of the ground, that's where they get lithium, and they were just injecting it back into the ground, and now that's highly valuable. So that little element might be the saving grace for the Salton Sea and the people who live around it, and so we're working on that story as well.
Well, that's great. We hopefully we can get that third part out here, but this it's a two-part series. And then let's talk about the other one. It's focused on the Native Americans, and it's a very I've been here 25 years. I've seen them grow in stature and power here in the valley, and I think that's just really incredible. And I think that's great that Olivia decided to focus on them for this piece. Can you talk about how this one came about and a little bit what it's about?
Sure. So this is really about the different unique tribes that are here. I think the Native Americans in the Coachella Valley, to walk back to the beginning of time here, you know, this was a reservation. They were put on reservations. Of course, we know that we shoved them out into lands that we didn't want, right? And this was land that no one really cared about at that time. Then the railroads came through. And when the railroads came through, in order to entice the railroads to build through the desert, which was at that time an engineering a feat to do that. To entice them, the government said, "We'll give you miles on each side we'll give you an easement right through the desert, and you can own all this land." Well, they had to take it back from the Native American tribes that are here, and so again, still land people didn't really care much about. Then Palm Springs took off, and the whole desert took off, and all of a sudden, land that nobody really cared about was more valuable, and and the tribes, to their credit, were like, well, okay, you want to play, you want some of this land back, we'll talk to you. But that was happening in addition to the tribes getting wise to the whole casino gambling idea.
Hmm.
And so we have a lot of casinos out here. I think there's 5 or 6 major casinos out here. And
Hmm.
I think that has good and bad has come to define some of these Native American tribes here. And what Olivia wanted to do was really put a face on these tribes, because they're not all the same. They are different tribes. They have different customs, different languages, even sometimes. And so, you know, their history gets glossed over with slot machines. And so we really wanted to go back and say they're more than just, you know, the native tribes, they're more than just the casinos. You know, these are whole tribes and whole you know, groups of people that have been living out here for millennia, you know,
Hmm.
and they have deep ties to this land, way more so than we do.
Hmm.
And you know, and as if you know anything about the native tribes, they really believe in being stewards of the land, and they take
Hmm.
that role really seriously. And I think we could all learn something from that. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we wanted to go back and just really explore these people and who they are, and how much they value the land here, and what that means to those of us who live in the Coachella Valley.
Well, I applaud you for doing that. I worked in sports journalism, and I remember I was at the paper and I was kind of saying, maybe we shouldn't use Washington's nickname for the football team. Maybe we shouldn't use the Cleveland baseball teams for the
Right.
nickname. And I got a little resistance, but I think it kind of, for me, what it spoke to is how they've grown. That now they have a voice, and now we're starting to
Right.
listen to them. And I think it's great that you did this story. I think it's overdue for this area.
I think so too. And to your point, they didn't have a voice, but they do now, because they have economics behind them because of the casinos. So, you
Hmm.
know, when there's been a couple of instances when the gambling issue has come up at the statewide level about whether or not the state of California was willing to allow them to do this. And their point was, well, we are sovereign nations. You can't tell us we can't. And they ended
Hmm.
up cutting a deal with then Governor Schwarzenegger. But when some of the criticism came down, I always like to point out to people, they were here before we were. So, so I say more power to them. They figured out a way to pull themselves out of poverty. And there are stories about some of the tribes here that literally didn't have running water or electricity into some of the tribal members' homes until the mid 90s. Just think about that
Yeah,
for a second. That's
that's
that. I mean,
crazy.
to have that kind of poverty right under our noses here, and it took the casinos to help fund them out of that. that's powerful. So that's, and whenever there's something that powerful happening around you, there's a story there.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of like famous, powerful people who lived here. We're talking about presidents and
Yeah.
ambassadors and stuff like that. But Richard Milanovich to me stands
Yep.
tall amongst them, and what he's done, just me living here 25 years, just see the transformation. I think
Yeah.
he's amazing. He's one of many who's done
Yep.
it.
Well, like I
Now
said,
you
they were here first. They were here
yeah.
first, and they take their role as stewards of the land very seriously.
Hmm. Now let's talk about you a little bit, your career. You've been at NBC, is it 2 years now, or a little bit more than two?
Almost 2 years. This is my second tour here. So I was news director here from 2013 to 2017, and then I went
Hmm.
back to Los Angeles from where I came and held some management jobs there, and did not expect when I came here to fall in love with the desert the way that I did. And so when NBC Palm Springs recruited me back, I was like, yeah, you don't usually get invited back. You don't usually get invited back. Hi, in the middle of an interview. Um, anyway, sorry about that. Oh,
No, that's
sorry.
awesome.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? I let people put some of my fridge in here. I guess I made it. Anyway, I was invited back. They recruited me back, and
Mhm,
I initially said no because I had left the industry and I was kind of burned out, and I really didn't think I wanted to do this anymore.
mhm,
And they came after me pretty hard. And as a news director, you don't usually get invited back to a station. You usually do your time and then you move on, and either you're not interested in coming back or they're not interested in having you back.
mhm,
And that was not the case on either side here. And so when I got together with the general manager and talked to him, I said, well, I do have a couple of requirements, and I don't think you're going to go for them. So thank you for the lovely dinner, but I don't think this is going to go anywhere. And much to my surprise, they gave me what I wanted, and it wasn't monetary. It was I wanted autonomy. I wanted to be
mhm,
able to do what I thought we should do here, and to be able to be judged on the success or failure of my ideas, having worked in corporate television news for basically my whole career. When you get into upper management, so often you're just doing what New York tells you to do.
right.
And I'm like, if you want to be the news director, then you come out here and be the news director. Why did you hire me?
Mhm,
I do have a brain. I do know something about this area, and I'm like, I want you to let me do what I want to do, and if it fails, fire me. But if it
mhm,
succeeds, then yay, we're off to the races. And so, much to my surprise, they said, okay, we'll let you do what you want. And we're seeing great success, and I'm really happy about it. And corporate's really happy. I'm really happy. I love the team I have built here. There are a lot of really hardworking people like Olivia.
mhm.
And I am passionate about telling community stories. We're moving away from crime and moving more into community, because I think that's what people want to see. I think TV news has to understand that crime is the crack cocaine of our industry. It's cheap, it's easy, but it's bad for you, and we need to stop doing it. And so I'm trying to get us away from the crack cocaine and onto a healthier diet of better content.
Well, when you took over this tour of duty, you had a big splash bringing Fred Rogan in with you. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that and the impact Fred's had over at the station? I mean, I see him all over the place. I mean, his promos and stuff like that. I haven't run into Fred.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so Fred and I worked together at Channel 4 KNBC in LA. He was there for 40 years. I was there for just 15. So, but he was doing sports there, and I was the assignment manager. And so we worked in the same newsroom together. But when I came back here, they were already talking with him. He had already pitched corporate on doing something here. But when they said we're talking to Fred, and I said, oh, okay. And they said, we think he wants to do sports. And I said, okay. And so we had a Zoom call, and it turns out that's not what Fred wanted to do at all. He wanted to do news, and he wanted to do a show that I had been involved with him in LA called The Filter.
Hmm.
And I was actually a regular panelist on The Filter as well on camera. And so he wanted to modify the show, freshen it up, make it more current, do a lot of social media stuff, which wasn't around back then.
Hmm.
And so I was like, yeah, you know what? We'll take a gamble on this, because I felt like that's what the station needed, was something different,
Hmm.
and to put us back on the map.
Hmm.
And so I think it has served that purpose. The ratings for his show have never been higher. I mean, we're looking at numbers. The highest in the time period is 16 years on this station, and
Wow.
so the audience has really responded to it. It is not a newscast. I'm very clear with people that you need to understand that we do newscasts here, and then at
Hmm.
6:30, the Rogan Report is a news show, but it's very different. It has a lot of opinion in it, both Fred's and our panelists. We have panelists that participate and they give their opinion about the stories that we are speaking about. And Fred has turned into a very much a sort of a watchdog, if you will. And that is
Nice.
not how we planned the show to start with. It's what it's evolved into. But
Hmm.
I think it's good because no one else is doing that. And he's taking on some of the stories that, frankly, the other stations don't want to touch, the other media doesn't want to touch. And um, so far, it's been good. I mean, we're joking, only half joking, that at some point we're going to start looking under our cars for bombs because we're taking on some stuff that are making people, some people in power angry. But that's one of the jobs of the media. We're supposed
Hmm.
to do that, and that's
Hmm.
fallen away because it's hard.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that we're doing that again because I think that that's one of the roles that the media is supposed to have, a free press, and we are supposed to hold the powerful accountable. And so that's what we're working to do. And I think Fred's doing a great job of doing that.
Yeah, that's a little bit of what, when we started this project that I pitched to include news stories from our local media is my idea is that there, this as well as I do, a lot of media downsizing. So you have a lot of great reporters out in the market with no platform to tell stories, and they're great storytellers, they have resources. And if down the road, I want to try to create this where there's a transition that if they get let go, they can find ways to create documentaries, the
Right?
documentary shorts. We have docs shorts 3 minutes, and just try
Right.
to encourage them to keep telling stories and keep digging because we need journalism. And
I don't think
so,
we've ever been in a time in our culture where we've needed it more.
oh
And
yeah.
I think that, I always make the distinction when I'm at cocktail parties or whatever, and people are saying, what concerns me the most is that a lot of the public does not make the distinction between a meme that they say that they see on Facebook and what we do. And I'm like,
Hmm.
you don't know who made that. You don't know if that's factual. You got to do your homework and look at that. You got to consider where it came from, first of all. And I'm like, that
Hmm.
could be been made by some guy in his mother's basement in Denver. I
Right.
mean, you don't know, right? And what we do is subject to standards and practices. We
Hmm.
have ethics. We have rules about fact checking. This is professional grade journalism. And
Hmm.
I just think where we are in the public discourse right now, where we have a hard time agreeing that the sky is blue,
Hmm.
and so facts need to be facts, and we need to agree on those. If we can't agree on facts, we're screwed. And
Yeah.
so I just think we have a huge amount of opinion out there. Everybody has a social media page. Everybody can be a blogger. More power to you. Your opinions are you have a right to your opinions. This is America. But when
Hmm.
it comes to factual journalism, I
Hmm.
just think we need that more than ever now. And I think you're absolutely right. It's sad that at this juncture in our culture, from a capitalist business standpoint, journalism is being cut.
Yeah.
And very talented people who do very important storytelling oftentimes wind up unemployed. And I think if you can find a way to give them a platform, that's fantastic.
What I tell filmmakers that, it is a problem, but it's also an opportunity and to
Yep.
redefine journalism because journalism is just going to be redefined. The landscape's just changed completely, and you just got to find new ways. I applaud everything that you're doing there at NBC. You guys are doing a great job, and you've really
Thank you.
transformed the station in the 2 years you've been there, and I've been very impressed with what you've done.
Thank you.
Um,
I appreciate it.
uh, I'm gonna just ask you this other question, but it's what triggers you doing a news story to doing a long feature like you've done with Olivia? What goes into the decision process to do something even more in depth and more than?
Well, I think the first and foremost it is when we become aware that there is a larger and deeper story that can be told that we can't tell in the confines of a regular news story. TV news used to do what we called series, where we
Hmm.
would do like a series of maybe two or three reports. Those were typically done during ratings periods or sweeps periods, and they were done to try to boost the numbers, right? They
Hmm.
they weren't done for altruistic storytelling reasons. They were done for commercial reasons. Um, But that's how the sweeps were born, and that's how multi-part storytelling was really born in commercial television news. That has gone away because the way that we tabulate our audience has changed, and so that's kind of a relic of the past. And so I think some of those longer form opportunities went away,
Hmm.
and there's still good stories out there.
Hmm.
And we are, like I mentioned before, we're professional grade journalism. We are professional journalists. We've been trained for this, and there are many stories out there that can't be told in 2 minutes, which is what we do in a newscast. 2 minutes
Hmm.
in a newscast is long,
Right.
and so we have to fight for people's attention span. But what I want us to understand is that we have the capacity to produce things that may not fit into a normal newscast, but we also have a platform here. We have a television station that can run that and can run those stories in longer form. And so when Olivia brought this to me, well, first about the Salton Sea, I was like, yes, that's a great topic that we've covered, sporadically in the news, but there's so much more to be told out there, and she did a great job doing it. And
Hmm.
so I think the first criteria is there needs to be a deeper story there that we can really dig into.
Hmm. Well, like I said, I appreciate what you're doing at the station, and thank you for being a partner with us. I think it's going to be a beautiful relationship. And
I do too. I'm really thankful.
I was joking with Olivia that we're an Oscar qualifying event, so we're going to try to help her get her EGOT.
Okay, I love that. Well, and I've submitted both of her specials for Emmy consideration this year. We'll know in June if she's nominated.
We're going to cross our fingers for her, but
That's right.
we're going to remind our fans, come out to AmDocs. We're going to feature Olivia's features, which are really terrific, worth your time, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to learn a lot about other topics. We have uh, a lot of great topics.
Yeah, I can't
David,
wait to
thank you.
come this year.
Yeah, David, thank you so much, and we
Yeah.
appreciate you being part of the family, and we look forward to a long relationship, and we look forward to sharing some more of your stories on the big screen. You have a lot of great journalists, and I know you're going to have a lot of great stories coming up.
Thank you very much, and thanks for this opportunity to talk about it.
All right, so the American Documentary Animation Film Festival again is March 27th through 31st at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Tickets on sale now. Come on out. It's going to be a great year. Thanks again, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you.